Welcome to James and Elena's English Chat, the podcast where we help you grow your English skills one conversation at a time. I am your host, James, and honestly, Elena, I'm feeling a little bit shaky today. My hands are actually sweating as we speak.
Oh no. Is it because you tried to cook again, James? Or did my cat Whiskers judge you too harshly this morning? She can be quite scary when she hasn't had her breakfast.
No, nothing like that. I've been reading about today's topic, Alex Honnold, specifically his incredible free solo climb of the Taipei 101 skyscraper earlier this year. Just looking at the photos of him 500 meters in the air with no ropes makes my stomach turn.
It is absolutely terrifying, isn't it? But it's also a perfect story for us to dive into today. Now, before we get into the details of the climb, let's do a quick level check. This episode is designed for B1 and B2 intermediate learners. If you don't catch every single word I say, that is totally fine. Just relax, enjoy the story, and let the English wash over you.
Exactly. Don't stress. Here is our plan for today. First, Elena and I are going to chat about our own experiences with heights, or lack of them. Then we'll move into the core of the story, how Alex managed to power through those bamboo sections of the building. While you listen, keep an eye out for phrasal verbs, because we'll be using a lot of them. And of course, we'll finish with Elena's vocabulary corner to review the best phrases.
It's going to be a great session. But James, before we start the story, I think you have a small request for our friends listening.
I do. It's just a tiny favor. If you enjoy learning English with us, please hit that subscribe button or like the episode. It really helps us keep making these free lessons for you. We love having you in our community.
It really does help. Thank you. So James, let's talk about Taipei 101. It's over 500 meters tall. I remember when it was the tallest building in the world. Are you the kind of person who likes to look out from the top of a skyscraper, or do you stay far away from the windows?
I'm definitely the guy standing 5 meters away from the glass, holding onto a railing for dear life. My wife, she's a nurse and very brave, usually has to pull me toward the view. But Alex Honnold, he didn't even have a window between him and the ground. He was outside, on the glass and metal, climbing it like a ladder.
It's hard to even imagine. This was a huge event called Skyscraper Live on Netflix. It wasn't like his climb of El Capitan in the mountains where he was alone. This was in the middle of the Xinyi district in Taiwan with thousands of people watching him from the street. How about you, the listener? Are you scared to death of heights like James, or are you a thrill-seeker?
I bet most people are on my side. But even for a pro like Alex, it wasn't easy. He was supposed to go on Saturday, but he had to wait because of the rain. Can you imagine the stress of waiting for the sun to come out when you're about to climb a giant metal bamboo stalk?
The delay must have been nerve-wracking. If the surface is wet, it's lethally slippery. But on Sunday, January 25th, the weather cleared and he finally started his ascent.
Lethally slippery? Those two words are enough to make me stay in bed forever. If I were Alex, I think I would have called it off and gone to find some bubble tea instead. I can barely walk on a wet kitchen floor without losing my balance.
I don't think Alex is the bubble tea and hide type, James. Even with the rain delay, he stuck to his plan. He waited for the sun to dry the glass because Taipei 101 is basically an urban mountain. It's 508 meters of steel and glass.
508 meters. That is over 100 floors. And it's not just a straight wall, right? The building has that famous design that looks like a giant bamboo stalk. I saw that it has 8 different sections that flare outward at the top. Why make it so complicated?
Well, it's a beautiful architectural choice. But for a climber, those sections are the hardest part. Every 8 floors, the building leans out. This means Alex had to deal with a deep overhang. He had to pull his entire body weight up and over the edge with no safety ropes.
That sounds exhausting. I can't even figure out how to find my keys in my doom drawer.
That's the messy drawer in my kitchen, let alone find a tiny metal ledge to hang on to 400 meters in the air.
It really is a test of endurance. Unlike a natural mountain where the grips are always changing, this climb was very repetitive. He had to go through the same difficult movements over and over again for more than an hour and a half.
And the pressure must have been through the roof. This wasn't a secret climb. Netflix was broadcasting the whole thing live to the entire world. I heard they even had a 10-second delay on the video feed, just in case a tragic accident happened.
It's a bit dark to think about, isn't it? But that shows how high the stakes were. Most athletes play in a stadium, but his stadium was the side of a skyscraper in the middle of a busy city. How about you, the listener? Do you think you could stay calm if you knew millions of people were watching you perform a dangerous task?
I definitely couldn't. I get nervous just giving a speech at a wedding. But Alex seemed so relaxed. Even with the wind picking up near the top, he just kept moving.
He really did. It's like he has nerves of steel, honestly. But those bamboo sections we mentioned, they were the real crux, or the hardest part of the climb. Every 8 floors, the building flares out, which means he had to power through these massive overhangs where the building was literally leaning over him.
It's like doing a pull-up on the edge of a roof, but doing it over and over again for an hour. My arms would turn to jelly after the first one. I struggled just to pull through a Monday morning with 3 cups of coffee. And what about those giant metal dragons on the corners? I saw photos of those gargoyles, and they looked impossible to climb.
Those were actually the most technical part. The metal was incredibly smooth with no texture, so there was nothing to hold on to. He had to use a technique called stemming, basically pushing his legs out wide against the structure, and he actually had to bear hug the dragon heads to move around them.
Bear hugging a dragon 400 meters in the air? That sounds like a very strange nightmare. How did he stay so calm? I'd be screaming for my life, or at least calling for my dog Barnaby to come save me, even though he's terrified of everything.
Well, that's where his tunes came in. He likes to zone out and find a flow state. So he was listening to a rock band called Tool during the climb. It helps him stay in the zone.
I heard about that, but didn't something go wrong with his earpiece while he was hanging off the side of the building?
It did. Right in the middle of a very dangerous section, his earpiece stopped working. Instead of panicking about the height, he casually asked the producers to fix the sound. He wanted to get back to his music so he could focus.
That is unreal. Most people would be praying, but he just wanted to carry on with his playlist. It's like he completely blocks out the fear and treats the whole thing like a normal day at the gym.
It really is a unique mindset. He has this amazing ability to keep at it even when things get awkward or the wind starts blowing. How about you, the listener? Do you have a specific song or a playlist that helps you zone out when you're doing something stressful?
I'm with you on the music, Elena. I usually put on some heavy rock just to power through the dishes or the laundry. But doing that while hanging off a skyscraper, that is a whole different level of focus. I'd probably accidentally drop my phone and my earpiece if I tried to change the track.
I can see that happening. But James, many people were actually surprised that he even took this risk. When he became famous years ago, he was what climbers call a dirtbag, someone who lives in a van and only cares about the next mountain. But for the Taipei 101 climb, he was a father of 2 young daughters.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking. If I had kids, I think I would think twice before doing something so dangerous. My wife would probably lock me in the house if I even mentioned climbing a ladder, let alone a skyscraper.
I feel you. My husband would probably have a heart attack, but Alex has a very specific philosophy. He talks about risk versus consequence. To him, the risk, the chance of actually falling, is very low because he practices so much. But he knows the consequence is total.
So he weighs up the danger like a math problem. That is so cool, but also so scary. He doesn't see it as a gamble. He sees it as a job he is perfect at. And when he finally reached the top of that giant spire, he didn't even look tired. He just looked out at the city and said, "Sick."
Just one word, sick. It's such a classic Alex Honnold reaction. Most people would be shaking or crying with relief, but he just took it in his stride. He even took a selfie. He seemed more excited about the beautiful view of Taipei than the fact that he just cheated death.
He's definitely built differently than us. But there was some drama after the climb, right? I remember seeing some headlines about how much Netflix paid him. People were a bit upset about the money.
Yes, there was a bit of a controversy. Reports said he was paid in the mid-six figures, so hundreds of thousands of dollars. Some people thought it was wrong to pay someone to do something so life-threatening. They felt the money might push him to take risks he shouldn't.
But Alex just brushed it off, didn't he? I read that he called the payment embarrassingly small compared to what major athletes in baseball or football make. He even said he would have done the climb for free just because the building is so iconic.
He really loves the craft of climbing more than the fame. It's amazing that he can stay so grounded even when he's literally 500 meters in the air. How about you, the listener? Do you think it's okay for companies to pay people to do dangerous stunts, or does it make the situation too risky? Would you go for it if someone offered you a six-figure paycheck to face your biggest fear?
Wow, we have covered so much ground today, Elena. I feel like I've climbed that building right alongside Alex, though I'm much more tired just from talking about it. I think it's important for our listeners to have a little map of the story so they can remember the key parts.
I agree. It's a lot to take in. Why don't you lead the way, James? Give us a little summary of the journey.
I'd love to. First, it's incredible to think that this whole historic event almost didn't happen on time because of a little rain. He had to wait an extra 24 hours just for the sun to come out. Then, against all odds, he started his ascent on that Sunday morning, facing over 500 meters of glass and steel.
And the bamboo design was the first big obstacle he had to face.
Exactly. It's incredible to think that every 8 floors, the building actually leaned out over him. He had to do those massive pull-ups to get over the edges. And against all odds, he even managed to bear hug those giant metal dragon heads on the quarters of the building.
Those dragon heads still give me the chills. He really had to use every bit of his technical skill there.
He really did. And finally, after an hour and a half, he reached the spire. It's incredible to think that his first reaction at the top was just to say, "sick," and take a selfie. He made the whole thing look so easy. How about you, the listener? If you had to summarize a big achievement in your life, what would be the bamboo sections or the hard parts you had to overcome?
That's a great question to think about. Now, to help everyone talk about their own challenges, let's move into Elena's vocabulary corner. I've picked out 5 phrases we use today that are very common in daily life. The first one is to figure out. To figure out. This means to find an answer or a solution to a problem after thinking about it.
I spent 20 minutes this morning trying to figure out why my dog Barnaby was barking at the wall.
I finally figured out how to use the new settings on my camera. The second phrase is to power through. To power through. This means to continue doing something difficult or tiring until it is finished.
I had a huge headache yesterday, but I had to power through the meeting anyway.
Even when I'm tired, I try to power through my Japanese homework every night. The third one is to zone out. Zone out. This means to stop paying attention to what is happening around you because you're thinking about something else or relaxing.
Sometimes when I'm on the bus, I just zone out and listen to music until I reach my stop.
If a movie is too long, I often zone out after the first hour. The fourth phrase is to stay grounded. To stay grounded. This means to remain calm, sensible, and humble, especially when you are successful or famous.
Even though he won the lottery, my friend stayed grounded and kept his old job.
It's hard to stay grounded when everyone is constantly giving you compliments. Our final phrase for today is to keep at it. To keep at it. This means to continue working hard at something, even if it is slow or difficult.
Learning guitar was really frustrating at first, but I kept at it and now I can play a few songs.
If you want to improve your English, you just have to keep at it every single day. And that's our list. Now let's start to wind down and think about what this story really means for us. Before we finish, I want to clarify a few more specific words from our story today. I know some of these were a bit technical.
I definitely need a hand with that. Like free solo. I know it means climbing alone, but there's more to it, right?
Exactly. Free solo specifically means climbing without any ropes, harnesses, or safety equipment. If you fall, there is nothing to catch you. It comes from solo, meaning alone, and free, meaning you aren't using tools to help you pull yourself up.
It sounds so lonely and terrifying. And what about stemming? You said he had to do that on the dragon heads.
Stemming is a clever technique. It is when a climber pushes their hands or feet against two opposite surfaces to stay in place. Think of it like a person standing in a doorway with one foot on each side of the frame to keep from falling. It's all about using pressure to stay up.
Oh, I think I do that when I'm trying to reach the top shelf in my kitchen to hide my snacks from my dog, Barnaby. And zone out. We use that one a lot.
Yes, to zone out is to lose track of what's happening around you because you were so focused or relaxed. Alex had to zone out the noise of the crowd below so he could focus only on the wall. It's like when I'm gardening and I don't even hear my husband, Mark, calling me for dinner.
I do that every time I start playing video games. Now, for our friends listening, we want to give you a little map to talk about this topic yourself. Here are 3 sentence starters you can use to practice.
The first one is, the thing that stood out to me most was. Use this to talk about your favorite part of the story. For example, the thing that stood out to me most was the dragon heads.
The second one is, if I were in his shoes, I would feel. This is great for talking about emotions. Like, if I were in his shoes, I would feel absolutely paralyzed with fear.
And the third is, I had to power through a difficult situation when. This helps you connect the story to your own life. Use it to describe a time you kept going even when it was hard.
Those are perfect. Speaking of your own lives, we have a challenge for you today. How about you, the listener? We want to know, what is the most daring or brave thing you have ever done? Did you move to a new country? Did you give a big presentation? Or maybe you just finally faced your fear of spiders?
Please leave us a comment and let us know. We love reading your stories. It really helps our community grow when we share these experiences. It's time for us to wrap things up for today.
I'm going to go home now and try to stay grounded, literally. I think I'll stay on the ground floor for the rest of the week. Thank you for hanging out with us.
Keep practicing your English, keep at it every day, and we will talk to you in the next episode. Goodbye!
Bye-bye, everyone.